Millionaire loses sight in tragic accident, but what happens next will touch your heart forever. The soft hum of piano notes filled the air of a grand concert hall, captivating everyone in attendance. At the center of the stage sat Lucas Reyes, a millionaire and prodigy in classical music, whose fingers danced gracefully across the ivory keys. Each note resonated with the audience, weaving a melody that seemed almost otherworldly. Dressed in a tailored black suit that exuded elegance, Lucas carried himself with the confidence of someone destined for greatness. His sharp jawline and neatly combed dark hair only added to his aura of perfection. As the final note lingered in the air, the concert hall erupted into a standing ovation. Lucas stood to acknowledge the applause, flashing a reserved yet confident smile. But beneath his polished demeanor, his thoughts raced toward his next milestone, his next triumph. This was his life, a blend of fame, fortune, and relentless ambition. That night, Lucas drove home in his sleek black luxury car, the glow of the city lights reflecting off its immaculate exterior. The faint echo of applause still played in his mind, blending with the soft classical music on the radio. He felt invincible, a man who had everything under control. A blinding light burst onto the road ahead, breaking his reverie. Lucas's heart seized as he slammed on the brakes. The screeching of tires, the deafening crash, and then, nothing. The silence was as jarring as the impact, a void where sound and light had once been. When Lucas opened his eyes again, everything had changed. The sterile white of a hospital room greeted him, the steady beep of monitors the only sound cutting through the oppressive stillness. Pain throbbed in his head, and when he tried to open his eyes wider, the darkness remained. The doctor's voice was calm but merciless. The accident caused damage to your visual cortex. It's uncertain if your sight will ever return. The words hit Lucas like a hammer. In an instant, the world he had built with his talent and determination crumbled. Music, the core of his identity, now seemed unattainable. Without his sight, without the ability to play, who was he? Weeks turned into months, and Lucas became a shadow of himself. The once vibrant melodies that filled his apartment were replaced by a heavy silence. His grand piano, a symbol of his greatness, now sat untouched, gathering dust. Friends and family tried to reach out, but Lucas shut them out, preferring the solitude of his despair. And then Clara Harper entered his life. "Lucas, my name is Clara Harper. I'll be your physical therapist," she said, her voice calm but steady. She stood in the doorway of his dimly lit apartment, her clipboard in hand. She was in her late 20s, with shoulder-length dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail. Her simple jeans and sweater belied a quiet determination that seemed unshakable. "I don't need your help," Lucas muttered, not bothering to turn toward her. Clara didn't flinch. "You might not think so now, but I'm here to make sure you can live your life again." Lucas scoffed, his voice bitter. "What life? I'm useless now." Clara paused, then stepped closer, her expression soft yet resolute. "You're not useless, Lucas. You're just lost. And I'm here to help you find your way back." Her words lingered, a faint light in the darkness Lucas had come to accept as his reality. For the first time in months, he felt something stir, an ember of hope buried deep within the ashes of his despair. What choice did he have but to let her try? Little did he know, Clara wouldn't just guide him through his blindness, she would challenge everything he thought he knew about life, love, and the music still waiting to be played. The soft hum of piano notes filled the air of the grand concert hall, each note resonating with the audience's breathless anticipation. Lucas Reyes, a prodigy in classical music, sat poised at the grand piano, his fingers dancing effortlessly across the ivory keys. The standing ovation that followed his final piece was deafening. Dressed in a tailored black suit that emphasized his lean frame and exuded elegance, Lucas stood to acknowledge the applause, his youthful confidence radiating. His thick, dark hair was neatly combed back, and his sharp jawline gave him the appearance of someone destined for greatness. He smiled, but in the back of his mind, He was already planning his next performance, another milestone on his meteoric rise. That night, as he drove home through the dimly lit streets of the city, Lucas felt an intoxicating mix of pride and adrenaline. The melody of his performance played faintly in his head, blending with the soft classical music on the radio. His luxury car, sleek and black, glided smoothly over the asphalt, the dashboard lights casting a soft glow on his focused expression. But fate has a way of rewriting even the most promising stories. Out of nowhere, a blinding light erupted on the road ahead. Lucas's heart seized as he slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The sound of screeching tires and the deafening crash shattered the serene night, throwing Lucas's world into chaos. When he opened his eyes again, everything was gone. The world he had built, his dreams, and, most terrifyingly, his sight. The darkness was suffocating, and for the first time in his life, Lucas felt powerless. The hospital room was sterile and quiet, save for the soft beeping of monitors. Lucas lay motionless, his face pale against the white pillow. Bandages wrapped around his head, a cruel reminder of the trauma he'd endured. The doctor's words cut through the haze of pain. The accident caused damage to your visual cortex. It's uncertain if your sight will return. The words echoed in Lucas's mind like a relentless drumbeat. He clenched the sheets with trembling hands, his once sharp mind unable to process what this meant for his future. Music, his identity, was now unreachable. His hands, so skilled and graceful, felt useless. He didn't just lose his vision, he lost his purpose. Days turned into weeks, and the once vibrant and ambitious Lucas became a shell of himself. He refused visitors, ignored messages, and let the days blur into monotony. His spacious apartment, once filled with the warm sound of piano practice, was now silent. The grand piano stood untouched in the corner, its glossy surface collecting dust. "Lucas, my name is Clara Harper. I'll be your physical therapist." Her voice was calm and steady, yet carried a warmth that felt oddly comforting. Lucas barely acknowledged her presence, slumped on the couch with a frown etched deeply into his face. Clara stood in the doorway, holding a clipboard. She was in her late 20s, with an unassuming beauty, dark, shoulder-length hair tied back in a loose ponytail and a simple sweater paired with jeans. But what stood out most was her smile, soft yet persistent, as if she could see through the walls Lucas had built around himself. "I don't need your help," Lucas muttered, not even turning his head toward her. Clara took a step closer, unfazed by his cold tone. "You may not think so now, but I'm here to make sure you can live your life again. And trust me, you will." Her optimism felt misplaced to Lucas. He scoffed. "What life? I'm useless now." Clara paused, her grip tightening on the clipboard. "You're not useless, Lucas. You're just lost. And I'm here to help you find your way back." Their session started simply. Clara guided Lucas through basic exercises, teaching him how to navigate his apartment without bumping into furniture, how to identify objects by touch, and how to rebuild his routine. At first, Lucas resisted, his frustration boiling over at every mistake. "I can't even pour a glass of water without spilling it," he snapped one day, slamming the cup onto the counter. "How am I supposed to live like this?" Clara stayed calm, her voice firm but kind. "Mistakes are part of learning, Lucas. And you're not doing this alone." Her patience was unyielding, and slowly, Lucas began to listen. Clara encouraged him to step outside, to feel the sun on his face and listen to the sounds of the world around him. At first, every step felt like a mountain, but Clara was always by his side, steady and supportive. One day, Clara arrived with a surprise. She placed a portable keyboard on the table in front of Lucas. "What's this?" he asked, running his fingers over the keys. "I thought it might be time for you to play again," Clara said, her tone gentle yet persuasive. Lucas froze. "I can't. Not like this." His voice was barely above a whisper. Clara knelt beside him, resting a hand on his. "Lucas, music isn't just about seeing the keys. It's about feeling them. You've played with your heart your whole life. That hasn't changed." Her words lingered in the air. Lucas hesitated, then pressed a single key. The sound was hesitant, fragile. But then he pressed another, and another. Slowly, a melody began to form, tentative at first, but growing stronger with each note. Clara closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. When Lucas finished, the silence was filled with something new, hope. Clara smiled. "See? It's still there." Lucas nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. For the first time since the accident, he felt a spark of the man he used to be. As the weeks turned into months, Lucas and Clara's bond deepened. They spent hours talking, about music, life, and dreams. Clara shared stories of her own struggles, her decision to become a therapist after losing her younger brother in a car accident. Her resilience inspired Lucas, and her belief in him became the foundation of his recovery. Yet, amidst the growing closeness, Lucas began to notice something unsettling. His heart raced when Clara laughed, her voice a melody more beautiful than any symphony. He found himself longing for her presence, her touch, her smile. But with those feelings came fear. What if she didn't feel the same? What if admitting his feelings ruined everything they had built? One night, as they walked through the park, Lucas stopped. "Clara, can I ask you something?" She turned to him, her eyes soft in the fading light. "Of course." Lucas hesitated, his fingers tightening around the mobility cane. "Why do you care so much?" "About me?" Clara smiled, her voice gentle. "Because I see the person you are, Lucas. And I believe in you, even when you don't." Her words hit him like a bolt of lightning. Lucas realized that, for the first time in years, he believed in himself too, not because of his sight, but because of Clara. That night, Lucas sat at his piano, letting his fingers glide over the keys. The melody he played was new, raw, emotional, and filled with the hope Clara had given him. As the notes filled the room, Lucas made a silent vow, to fight for his future, to embrace life despite its challenges, and to hold on to the one person who made it all possible. In the darkness, Lucas found his light. And her name was Clara. The warm glow of the morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains of Lucas's apartment, casting soft patterns on the wooden floor. It had been nearly 2 years since the accident, and life, though still shrouded in darkness, had taken on a new rhythm. Lucas had grown accustomed to navigating the world without sight, and with Clara's unwavering support, he'd learned to find beauty in the sounds, textures, and scents around him. But there was one thing he couldn't ignore, his growing feelings for Clara. Lucas sat at the piano, his fingers hovering over the keys, a melody forming in his mind. The song was for Clara, a way to express what words couldn't. The soft click of her footsteps approached, and he smiled before she even spoke. "Practicing for your debut?" she teased, placing a cup of coffee beside him. He chuckled, turning toward her voice. "More like trying not to mess up. You're a tough audience." Clara laughed, the sound light and infectious. "I have faith in you, Lucas. You've come so far." Her words were a balm to his insecurities, but today, something weighed heavily on his mind. "Clara," he began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you." She sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, his voice faltering. "I don't know where I'd be without you. You've given me more than I ever thought I'd have again, hope, strength, purpose. But there's something else. He paused, fear knotting in his chest. "I think I'm in love with you." The silence that followed was deafening. Lucas held his breath, bracing for her response. Finally, Clara's voice broke the tension, soft and filled with emotion. "Lucas. I love you too." His heart soared. "You do?" "Yes," she said, her hand tightening around his. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to risk what we have, but I feel the same. Relief and joy washed over him. He reached for her face, his hands gently tracing her features as if committing them to memory. You've been my light in the darkness, Clara. I can't imagine my life without you. Tears filled her eyes as she leaned in, their foreheads touching. You don't have to. I'm here, Lucas. Always. Weeks later, the two stood hand in hand at a doctor's office. Clara had encouraged Lucas to consider experimental surgery that might restore his sight. Though hesitant, he'd agreed, driven by the thought of seeing her face for the first time. The doctor, a middle-aged man with a kind demeanor, explained the procedure. It's not a guaranteed success, Lucas. The surgery could restore partial or full vision, but there's also a chance it may not work at all. Lucas nodded, his hand gripping Clara's tightly. I understand. I'm ready. Clara smiled at him, her voice steady. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. The day of the surgery arrived, and Lucas lay on the operating table, his heart pounding. Clara stood by his side until the last moment, her voice a steady anchor. I'll be here when you wake up. Her words echoed in his mind as the anesthesia took hold, pulling him into darkness once more. When Lucas awoke, the room was dim, and everything was still black. Panic rose in his chest, but Clara's voice calmed him. You're okay, Lucas. The surgery is over. He reached for her hand. Did it work? The doctor said we have to wait. Your brain needs time to adjust. The days that followed were a test of patience. Lucas strained to perceive even the faintest glimmer, but the darkness remained unbroken. Clara stayed by his side, her optimism unwavering. Don't give up, she said one evening, sitting beside him on the couch. Even if it takes time, you've already come so far. Her words comforted him, but the doubt lingered. Then, one evening, as they walked through the park, something changed. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers, and the sound of children playing echoed in the distance. Clara described the setting as she always did, painting vivid pictures with her words. Suddenly, Lucas froze. Wait, he said, his voice trembling. I think I saw something. Clara turned to him, her breath catching. What did you see? I'm not sure, he said, his face tilting toward the sky. It's like a flicker, light and shadow. Her grip on his arm tightened, her voice filled with hope. That's amazing, Lucas. It's a start. Days turned into weeks, and Lucas began noticing more. The flickers became shapes, then outlines. One morning, as he sat by the window, a burst of sunlight illuminated the room, and he blinked rapidly. For the first time in years, he could distinguish the vibrant glow of the sun. Clara, he called, his voice shaking with excitement. I can see the light. She rushed into the room, tears streaming down her face. I knew it, Lucas. I knew this day would come. Months later, Lucas stood at the altar, dressed in a classic black tuxedo. The garden was adorned with white and lavender flowers, their fragrance mingling with the warm summer breeze. Friends and family filled the seats, their murmurs creating a soft symphony of anticipation. As the music began, Lucas's heart pounded. He turned toward the aisle, his breath catching as Clara appeared. Her white dress shimmered in the sunlight, the delicate lace detailing highlighting her graceful figure. Her hair, adorned with small flowers, cascaded over her shoulders, framing her radiant smile. For a moment, Lucas couldn't move. Tears welled in his eyes as the world around him came into focus. Clara was even more beautiful than he had imagined. When she reached the altar, she noticed his expression. Lucas, she whispered, her voice trembling. What's wrong? He shook his head, overcome with emotion. Nothing's wrong, Clara. I can see you. Her eyes widened, tears spilling over. You can see. "Yes," he said, his voice breaking. "You're everything I dreamed of and more." The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. The officiant, visibly moved, continued the ceremony. When Lucas and Clara exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. "You may kiss the bride." Lucas cupped Clara's face in his hands, their kiss sealing not only their love but the miracle they had experienced together. The crowd cheered as the newlyweds walked down the aisle, hand in hand, ready to begin the next chapter of their journey. Lucas Reyes's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love. From the depths of despair to the rediscovery of hope, Lucas learned that life is not defined by what we lose, but by how we rise after the fall. His journey from blindness to clarity, both in sight and in purpose, reminds us that true wealth lies not in talent or material possessions, but in the connections we forge and the courage we find within ourselves. Clara Harper, with her unwavering belief in Lucas, proved that one person's light can illuminate the darkest paths. Together, they created not just a life of love, but a legacy of hope, inspiring others to see beyond limitations and embrace the possibilities hidden within every challenge. Through the music he once feared he would never play again, Lucas found a way to connect with the world. His foundation, built with Clara, became a beacon for others who had lost their way, showing them that even in the darkest moments, there is light to be found. What does Lucas's story mean to you? Have you ever faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable, only to find strength you didn't know you had? Share your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear your story. If this heartwarming tale inspired you, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories that touch the heart and remind us of the beauty of life. Click like to support our channel and share this video to spread the message of hope and resilience. Together, we can create a ripple effect of positivity and change. What would you do if you were in Lucas's shoes? How would you find your light? Comment below, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for being a part of this journey. See you in the next story. Glowing Star.